We're live. We're live. Cool. Hi, guys. Nice to see you again. So to start with, ask me any questions in the comment box and I will get through all of them. Please just ask away. Ask any questions here. Calendly link, as always. If you want to get in touch and have a free call with me, you can find my Calendly link. We can have a 30-minute free call where I can help you out with anything that you want to know, or anything that you'll find helpful. I'm going to chuck on the headphones for the sake of clarity of communication. So yeah, please ask away any questions. What we're going to go through today is flirting. I'm going to talk about what it means to flirt, how you flirt, and what are some of the kind of common mistakes, pitfalls, or errors. To everyone watching, please comment that you are watching. Please say hello. Tell me if the audio is good. Tell me if there's anything that needs changing. Hello, Hamza. Good to see you, man. So, I want to start by saying that flirting isn't what people think it is. It's not always sexy. People always think that flirting and being sexy are sort of on the same page or the same thing, and they're not. It's a little bit different. So I want to simplify it and take away some of the associations that aren't helpful or realistic or even useful. So the first thing to say about this is that flirting is just a way of connecting with someone else, right? It's not even purely in the realm of women, right? You essentially flirt with your friends every time you have a bit of banter, every time you have a joke with your friends. It's the same idea as flirting. And we're going to go into a little bit of like what it actually means and what the evolutionary reason why we do it, and what it actually communicates to the other person, because it's not always just on the surface. Sometimes you have to dig a little bit deeper. But the first thing to think about when it comes to flirting is to ignore all of the associations and think about it as just a way to build a connection with someone, right? So the idea of flirting is just deeply, deeply connected to the idea of building a personal connection with someone else. So what is the easiest way to build a personal connection with a woman that you like? Maybe a woman that you've just met in the daytime, someone that you've just approached in the day. How do you build a connection with her? Well, what is a connection? What do we mean when we say connection? It's something that connects the two of you where she doesn't feel connected with everyone or everything else, right? So if the connection were the same connection that she had with everyone else in that environment or everyone else in the world, it wouldn't be a connection, right? We wouldn't even need the word. The reason why we use the word connection is to say that it's a specific way in which we're connected, right? So we're starting to build a little picture here. There's some level of specificity when we use the word connection. And so how can you make your relationship with her specific where other relationships that she has are not specific in the same way? And she maybe doesn't describe all of the guys that have approached her or the guys that she knows and the girls that she knows. She wouldn't describe herself as having some connection with them. Why would she do it with you, right? Well, the connection is about nuances. You build a connection when you notice nuances about someone. So nuances, what is a nuance? What is a nuance that someone could have? Well, someone might walk around with a Rubik's Cube, right? I start playing with a Rubik's Cube. This becomes my thing on the Flirt social live streams, is that I'm playing with a Rubik's Cube. And all of a sudden I've got this nuance, this thing that's specific about what I do, right? And that will become a sort of part of my identity, right? As the guy that's fiddles with the Rubik's Cube. You see a lot of this happening actually on with YouTubers and sort of semi-celebrities, people going that way, is they use props. They smoke a cigar, right? There's a mindfulness guy that smokes a cigar. There's another guy that just holds this sort of samurai sword as he's talking. And what it does is it builds these associations of you are the guy, you are this interesting, quirky, unboxable individual. And in the same way, with women, what might a nuance be? Well, maybe it's something about her style. Maybe she's wearing big, colorful shoes and she really stands out, right? One way that I used to sort of build a flirty connection with a girl was I would say I would find her nuance, which in many cases actually was the shoes, right? Girl who wears crazy, colorful shoes. I'd be like, those are the ugliest shoes I've ever seen. I love them. I love them. And this had this weird effect, right? We were talking a little bit. I was smiling. She was open. I was like, these are the ugliest shoes I've ever seen, and I love them. And by using that juxtaposition, she doesn't take offense. You're not saying your shoes are fucking horrible, right? You're sort of playfully saying these are really ugly, knowing that you can get away with it, and then saying I love them, right? Now you've sort of created this narrative that her nuance is she's the girl with the crazy shoes, right? She dresses up flamboyantly when everyone else is a sea of black and white, right? So this leads to the next part of it, which is the story, right? Once you've found a nuance, for example, the shoes, or it might be a way that she looks when she's thinking. She might go like this, look right, look left, look right. And that might be a nuance that you pick up on. And you might notice it and sort of smile. And she says, why are you smiling? You say, I just noticed whenever you're thinking, you have the same pattern of where you look. It's kind of funny. I haven't seen that before. Right? It's another nuance. And then you can develop that nuance into a story, right? You can create a story about it, right? So a story might be with the shoes that it's she's so sick of being in this, of everyone looking the same and a sea of black and white, that she needs to she brings her superpower into play, which is wearing the most crazy shoes so that she can brighten up the world. Some bullshit story, whatever it is, but funny and sort of light and not too serious. With the looking up and around, you can make a story up about it's wow, most people when they answer a question, they just scan their mind, but you really search for a good answer, right? You're very thoroughly thinking, I can see. Right? So you turn the nuance into a story. That the first girl is trying to wake everyone up into the world of color. The second girl who looks around is trying to find the best answer. She's a real deep thinker, really trying to figure things out. So step one, you find a nuance. Step two, you turn it into a story. Step three, develop that story. Now, the first two are basically things that you do right there, right? You find the nuance and you turn the nuance into a story. The third step to develop it is a never-ending process. Let's say you met this girl in the daytime and you approached her in the day, and then you get in a relationship with her, right? You end up actually dating her. Well, now that you're dating her, do you think this just ends, right? Because you've done it now. You've done the flirting, you've got the girl in a relationship, that's it. No, not the way it works. All of this has to continue. In fact, into a relationship, whether it's a monogamous, committed relationship or someone that you're regularly sleeping with and doing stuff with, but it's not committed, flirting is more important than ever in that case, because what is your relationship without it? What is it without the connection, without the story that brings you together, the thing that makes your relationship interesting where it wouldn't have been interesting with other people? What is that? So the third step, the developing, is a never-ending process that will last the entire time that you stay with this girl. It should do, even if that's for the rest of your life and happily ever after. The personal narratives never need to die. They never need to go. So there's about at least 10 of you watching now. We've hit the double figures, the golden section. Please, guys, let yourself be known. Ask any questions. Give me any feedback. Let me know what you want to hear about, and we'll get back to this and keep developing this idea. So we're on point 3. What does it mean to then develop the story? Well, using the examples we've just talked about, the girl with the colorful shoes, the girl who looked around before she answered a question, you've noticed this nuance about her, you've turned it into a story, and now you develop that story. So how might you do it? If you guys have any ideas, put them in the comment section. Let's take the shoes example, right? Maybe, I'm just shooting from the hip here, maybe you go past a shop and there are some boring like school shoes or work shoes, black shoes, something like that. You take a picture in the shop window of all of these boring shoes and you say, there's an emergency. All of the shoes in the store are black. Quick, like come here quickly, bring all of your colorful trainers. We need to help these people out. Right? That might be a way you develop the story. And much better than, hey, how's you? Hey, how's your day going? What are you up to later? If you send her a picture of some black shoes and tell her to bring her vintage shoe collection over to the store because the people are in desperate need, how do you think that message is going to hit? How do you think that's going to make her feel relative to, hey, how are you doing? What's your plans this afternoon? How do you think it's going to make her feel? Do you think she's going to feel like in some way your relationship stands out? That you actually are interested in her? That maybe there's something different going on, right? You're the guy that's not just asking the same boring questions. Like there's something going on here. There's some connection here. You're the person that has created this story, right? You've made this story with her. You're giving her something that she can smile at. You're making her feel special, that you've put this like funny fantasy around her, this funny story. It's exactly what women like. They like a guy who's light, who's playful, who's creative, who doesn't take himself too seriously, who takes risks, who's spontaneous. And all of this is communicated in this action. However, you're not doing this action to communicate that. You're doing it because this is for you as well. This is how you enjoy your connections. This is how you enjoy your relationships. It's not just for women. Flirting is for us as well. We need this. We need this depth of communication. We need the specificity of communication. So the 3 steps: find a nuance, something personal about her, something different, something interesting. Turn that nuance into a story. She's a deep thinker. She's a creative. She's got something different going on. She's unlike the other girls in some way. Turn it into a story of how she's different. Develop that story over time. When you're thinking, what shall I message this girl? Like most of the, if you're someone who is approaching and you've got some leads right now, I guarantee that a few of you, most of you probably, are looking at these leads and being like, what shall I say? Like, I don't know what to say. Like, maybe I'll just ask her out again. And if she doesn't reply, I'll delete the number or like I'll ignore her. Imagine now that you'd started with a personal narrative and you and this girl had some funny connection, right? Like you're terrible superheroes with no powers, or like whatever it is, right? I think me imagining up good examples right now is no easy task, but on the spot. But imagine now that you didn't need to think, what shall I say to her? Because you've got a story that you can develop, right? You've got the shoes, you've got a picture that you can take, right? Maybe you found that she looks a bit like a bush baby or like some sort of animal, and then you see like some picture of an animal or in a store window and be like, you never told me your cousin was in town, right? Like it's about this creativity and this desire to create fun and humor in the life of someone else, right? So this is how you flirt, right? It doesn't have to be all sexy and sexual. It doesn't have to go there. It can do, but introducing sexuality into an interaction, right? Introducing flirtatiousness into an interaction is going to be far easier. It's going to be far easier once you've got this basis of personal connection, right? Once you can introduce sexuality through a story, through a fantasy, and not with overt declarations of sexual desire, but you can instead bring that fantasy, you can bring that sexuality in through a story, through a fantasy. All of a sudden, it's not quite so real, is it? If you're talking about how you're going to have a terrible honeymoon in the Bahamas and everything's going to go wrong, you'll have amazing sex, but like we're going to argue all the time and have amazing sex, and then when we go back home, like we're not going to talk for 4 months, then we're going to get back together and we're going to have the most dramatic relationship in the history of humankind. All of a sudden, you're talking about sex, you're talking about the relationship, the sex, but you're not doing it directly and you're not doing it seriously. So the same effect comes in if you're addressing it, you're talking about it, you're demonstrating your sexuality, your sexual availability, but without the seriousness, the heaviness, and the weirdness of just talking openly sexually. Can often feel weird, often isn't the right time. But through a fantasy, anything's possible. You can get away with it. It's a way of sort of playfully introducing the freedom that conversation can bring when it's not bound by the typical restraints that we consider, like don't talk about sex, don't push it, don't be needy. What if you're needy in a fantasy? What if you're like, I'm going to be calling you up every day for the next year, and you're going to send your ex-boyfriend over, but then I'm going to find like another beautiful girl, and we're going to live happily ever after until you come around our house with an axe and it all goes pear-shaped. Right? There's so many ways when you build a connection with a girl to create these kind of crazy stories, and for her to be like, you're silly. You're ridiculous. You're ridiculous. And it's like, yes, that's a good thing, right? In the right context, that's a good thing. So guys, please let me know what you think about that. Let me know if there's anything you think you can add to it, any questions you have on that process, any specific examples that I can answer. If you don't want to do that now, as I said, please find my Calendly link in the comment section. Post your comments there, and let's turn this into a discussion, because I like it when we can just talk on these streams and it's not so serious like a lecture. I don't like just sitting here and lecturing everyone. It gets boring for me. So let's talk. Let's talk. Hamza, so tell me something. How are you doing, man? So my Calendly link is now posted there. So anyone that wants to contact me, please do so now. So we've talked a little bit about flirting, but what do you think? What do you think is the next step? Let's say you've introduced a bit of flirting. Let's say you've built this narrative. You've made this story with a girl. What do you think comes next? What comes after that in the process? We'll get onto that after I've answered a few of your questions. What if she doesn't reciprocate? Just for reference, guys, here is the Calendly link. That's what it looks like. What if she doesn't reciprocate your flintiness? I'm assuming that means flirtiness. Well, look, this is something, Hamza, that you kind of build up to, right? So if you've just entered an interaction with a girl and you haven't spoken with her hardly at all, you haven't introduced yourself, you haven't found out anything about her, you haven't found out where she lives, where she's from, any information, and then you start sort of flirting immediately, and she's just like, okay, then it seems highly likely that she's either very anxious or she's not interested in you, which is going to happen, right? I'm not trying to provide here like a one-size-fits-all magic master key to unlocking the desire of every woman. It's not like that. It's like when you're talking with one of the girls that's for you, one of the girls where you talk to and she's actually open to it and she actually likes you, which happens. It's like, well, yes, she seems to be interested. She seems to like me right now in the interaction. But I know from experience that if I get her phone number and go away and tell her it was nice to meet her and how's she doing, this girl is never going to respond to me in 9 cases out of 10. That's usually the way it goes, right? We meet one of the girls that's for us, that likes us, that we get on with, but we realize that we just haven't really done enough for this to go anywhere, right? Maybe it will, but in most cases it's not going to. It's 1 in 5 to 1 in 10 chance that it's actually going to go anywhere. But if you've introduced this narrative in the interaction, she's got some imagery in her head that you've created with her to remember alongside your face. And now when you're messaging her after the interaction, instead of telling her it was nice to meet her and how was her day going, you're developing that story, that nuance to story to developing into something more substantial. And the developing part comes first in the messaging process, right? If she's someone like, if when you met her, she's like, sorry, I just got out of bed, like I just woke up recently and it's like 11 a.m., then that's her nuance, right? She's like one of these girls that just kind of like rolls through life. She just rolls out of bed and see what the day brings her, right? And then maybe you develop that into the story of like, like every day her friends are like asking her, do you want to come out? But they can never know where she is because like half the day she sleeps. Sometimes she just sleeps from 3 p.m. in the afternoon to midnight and then gets up in the middle of the night. There's no knowing. She's a law unto herself, right? And then when you message her, be like, I'm in the middle of the day, you'd be like, I'm sure you're fast asleep right now, sleeping beauty. But when you wake up, right, you might introduce the message like that. And when she sees it, she smiles and she thinks, this guy with whom I have this narrative. And you stand out in her mind as the guy that gets her, right? The guy that understands her, that sees her differently, that is fun and humorous and bringing energy into the interaction. And so I want to go into a little bit about flirting just on this topic before we maybe move on, which is important. And it's about what we're actually doing when we're flirting, right? So we said that we're building a connection, but why do women respond well to men who tease them, who sort of take the piss out of them in some way, who, you know, tell them that they're like, they sleep all day, they're gonna miss the party, that, you know, you tease them about their ugly shoes, you tease them about sleeping. Why do girls tend to go for these guys who do this in, you know, without being mean, without doing it in a mean way, but introducing this lightly into conversation? Why do women go for that guy? Well, it's like this. When you're with your friends, if one of you is afraid that that telling this joke is going to offend the other one, then you're not very good friends. The best friends know that they can take the piss out of someone else, right? They know that they can take the piss out of one of their friends for like one of his apparent defects or some, you know, nuance or quirk. And that friend responds by smiling, and he enjoys it when they take the piss out of him. Now, why is this? Well, it's because in taking the piss, in teasing that person, what you're saying is, I trust that you have a sense of humor, right? I know that you have a sense of humor. And so when I say this thing, I know you're going to find it funny and we can laugh together, right? Let's find an excuse to laugh together. You know, maybe you seem a bit serious right now. So I'm going to take the piss out of you, right? And remind you that you're not serious, that you're a funny guy, that you like to laugh, and that we can laugh together. Now, how does this work with a woman? Well, in exactly the same way, except it's far less common, because men are usually so anxious about performing to an optimal capacity with a woman that they never have the space, time, or courage to confide in her that she has a sense of humor. But when they do, when a guy does relax enough, or when he is confident enough to tease her, right, to take that risk, to say, I trust that although you seem a little bit serious and shy and nervous, maybe you're not attracted to me, whatever, you seem like this now, I know that you've got a sense of humor, right? I trust in you that you've got a sense of humor. And then he teases her and she says, oh my God, he thinks I have a sense of humor. He can see that I've got a sense of humor. And so she laughs because it feels good when someone is confiding in you in that way, especially a stranger. And that's why they feel a connection. That's how they feel a connection. They say, this guy, we've only met for 5 minutes and already I feel like we know each other so well. I feel like he understands me. Well, really, she just senses that you're seeing the best side of her. When the nice guys who aren't teasing, who are too scared, who are not taking any risks, all they see is a fake version of her. They see the princess. They see the angel on a pedestal who they have to impress. But she knows she's not like that. She knows she's flawed. She knows she has issues. She knows she has problems. She knows what she looks like without makeup. She knows her trauma from childhood. And this guy has no idea. All he sees is this like Instagram version of her, this fake airbrushed improved version. And he's unable to see clearly what she's actually like. He's unable to appreciate her in the ways that she wants to be appreciated. But this other guy who's come over and is now being almost rude, but not quite rude, because it's said in a fun and playful way, he understands what I'm really like. He sees through that. He sees my sense of humor. He sees my fun personality. He's taking a risk with me, right? And I like risk takers. And women do like risk takers because it's who can afford to take risks, right? Someone who's courageous. What does it mean from an evolutionary perspective when she's in some sort of trouble? Maybe she's being harassed by another male or something like that. What's the guy who's willing to take risks likely to do? Well, he's likely to take a risk and address the situation. What's the guy who's just trying to impress her all the time likely to do? Probably not much, because he's unable to even see what she's actually like. So how can she expect him to address a real problem when it occurs? He doesn't have even the creativity or presence of mind to see her clearly right now, right? It's not a sign of someone who's going to be courageous, confident, and decisive when he needs to be. Women are attracted to risk takers. I would say the eyes are super underrated, but maybe the most important tool we have. Yeah, eyes are pretty cool, man. Eyes are good. You can see out of them. They're pretty. You can open and close them. Eyes are dope. Eye contact is really important. So yeah. Flirtiness. Like your story. She finds it cringy. Yeah, well, look, this isn't about the story, man. Like, if you look at comedians, right? So there's a guy called Andrew Schultz. I don't know if you know Andrew Schultz, but he's a very good comedian. But I was listening to what he was saying, and I did an experiment where I said, right, listen to what Andrew Schultz is saying. And now imagine he said it with a straight face, didn't laugh at his own jokes, didn't say it in any, fun or expressive tone of voice. He would basically just be insulting everyone in the audience. He's horrible to people. He's horrible to them. But the way that he does it is he's being as horrible as he can for his own amusement, and he finds it really funny, and he laughs at it after he does it because he finds it so funny. And this may be a performance, right? But good comedians are the perfect example of, they could tell a story that if you told, it would sound so boring and so rude and weird. But the way that they're saying it is with humor, right? They're saying it because they find it funny. So if she finds your story cringy, it's because you don't believe your story. You don't find your story funny. And if you don't find your story funny, then you're a performing monkey again. You're just doing what you can to impress her. And you're not actually trying to connect with her, right? It is not about the story. It's about the way that you express the story. And if you find as you're telling the story that it's actually like too ridiculous to even talk about, or you lose your words, then laugh at the fact that you've lost your words, right? Laugh at the fact that you're like, I don't even know where I'm going with this. I started this story, but it's going nowhere. My God, I'm sorry. I need to start again. Let me start again. Let me take some time, right? Play with that, right? Start again. Find another nuance. Find another personal narrative, right? Take it slowly. If she doesn't like your story, she finds it cringy, it's either because she really doesn't have a sense of humor, or she's not in a position where she can access her sense of humor, or she's just not attracted to you and she wants you to go. As I said, this is for the girls that are for you, that have the potential to be for you, and not the ones that don't. There are going to be women that just do not want you. They're not attracted to you, and there's nothing you can do about that in the moment, right? Enough evidence, research evidence, has shown simply the mere effect of having time pressure and not having time pressure. They've done experiments where some of the experimentees were asked to perform a job, for example, carrying papers to another office, right? Carrying papers from one place to another office, and others were told that they had nothing to do. They could go outside and take 15 minutes break. In the same experiment, they had a separate group of men, this time these were women, of men that were told to go and approach the woman standing outside, or the woman as she goes outside. And there was massive differences in the responses that the women showed when they were carrying the papers to the other office, and when they were just told they could go outside and do nothing. And almost all cases, the women who were given the task completely ignored the guys, or didn't give them any time of day and were quite rude. And the ones who were told to just go outside were much more receptive. It's just a basic experiment to show that that her circumstances are so outside of your control, whether she's going to be open, whether she's going to like you, whether she's going to hear you out, that it's not worth thinking about. Focus on the girls that are for you. Forget about the girls that aren't. See it as another experience, another open door, another interesting experience in your day, another aspect that enriches your day in some way. Yeah, rock the boat, man. You've got to rock the boat. You've got to rock the boat from a place of curiosity, right? You've got to say, like, fuck it, let's try this. It's got to be that mindset of, like, I'm alive right now. I'm alive and I'm not always going to be alive. At some point, this is all going to end. None of this is that important. Let's see what I can get out of this. Let's push this. Let's have fun with this. Let's give this a real go, right? And so not rocking the boat is falling into the illusion that you're going to live forever in the most fundamental sense. That's what I believe it is. Anxiety, not taking risks, looking for security, is just merely forgetting that this whole life is just a game. It's just, you're the player, you're going through it, and at some point it's going to end. And forgetting that, you forget that at your own peril, because it is the inevitability. And when you're taking risks and you're curious and you're squeezing everything you can out of every situation, you're aware of how incredibly lucky you are that you exist right now, that you're here. It's impossible that you're here, and yet you are. So you only have this time. So rock the fucking boat, man. Hey, man, good to have you here. Just tuning in, good to catch you. So for anyone else just tuning in, please ask any questions in the comment section. For those of you that have just joined us, we've talked about flirting, the 3 steps to flirting. Essentially, step 1 is you find a nuance. You find an interesting feature about the girl, like a nuance that you haven't, that not many people have, something specific to her. The second step is to turn that nuance into a story. So we use the example of a girl with very colorful shoes on. You notice the nuance. You say, these are very interesting shoes, very colorful, very colorful. I like them, right? So you're teasing her that they're kind of ugly shoes, but you're saying that you like them. That's the nuance. You develop it into a story, like in a sea of black and white and gray shoes. You're the one that's trying to bring a bit of color. I applaud you. You're trying to bring a bit of color into this otherwise gray world. And then you develop that story. For example, when you message her, maybe you take a picture of a storefront with black shoes only in it, and you say, your help is needed urgently. I need you to bring all of your colorful vintage shoes over to help this boring, bland shop out, right? Instead of asking her, how are you? So that's one example of how you can flirt. You find the nuance, you turn the nuance into a story, and you develop that story for as long as you and this girl care to do so, and for as long as you stay together, that it never needs to end, it never needs to stop. If you end up married with children, you can continue these narratives. That's the beautiful thing about them. They're part of your unique relationship and connection with this girl for however long it lasts and for whatever reasons. So not a lot of input from you guys today. Hamza's very active as always. Hot Steamy's given us the token 1 message before he turns his monitor off and leaves. And C. Joel's tuning in. Anything to add, man? Any questions? Anything else you want to go over? I'm obviously happy to answer any questions. We've sort of tackled this idea of flirting. I'm assuming that that's clear to all of you, as I haven't had any more feedback yet. And so, yeah, let me know if there's anything else you want to know about this, or if there's any way you want to go with this, or if there's any examples in your life that I can help you with, because I'm happy to do that now. As I said, my Calendly link is in the description. So if you want a free 30-minute call with me, any of you guys, I'm happy to go over this one-on-one with you on a free 30-minute call. And I'm going to be back in London on June the 21st. I'm going to be heading to Mexico for at least 10 days before, so that I can avoid this quarantine hotel. I'm currently in Rio, traveling a little bit around Brazil at the moment, this weekend. But I'll be back in London, so anybody that does want to talk with me about the situation in London, or go out with me and do a couple of hours, get in touch with me, and we can make it happen in London. I think London is going to be the summer of love. I think it's going to be amazing this year. I really believe that from, see, I'm a Rubik's Cube guy now. I'm the guy that does the video with Rubik's Cube. It's my identity. This is my nuance. I think London's going to be amazing this year. So I'm really, really excited to come back. I'm really excited to get out there. I think it's probably still the best place I've been in the world when it comes to cold approach, because you just don't know what you're going to get. It's like here in Brazil, women are more receptive, generally speaking, to cold approach. Like you go and talk to a girl over here, she's more likely to respond warmly than a woman is in London. However, what London has that Rio doesn't is it has this sense of mystery. It's so unhomogeneous, right? There's the people you meet in London that they're not from London, they're not from England. It's like this cultural melting pot, and it makes something so incredible and exciting about the process of meeting women and approaching in London. So yeah, I'm really, really excited. I may be going to Mykonos in Greece in July, so anyone interested in coming there, let me know. I might be going to Russia in July, early August as well. But really, London's going to be the best. So if you guys aren't already going out, I strongly advise that you get out in London at the moment, because I believe it's the best place in the world. And I think this summer that's going to be more obvious than ever. So yeah, let me know where you're going to plan on going out in London. Do you guys have wingmen in London? Are you going out right now? Like, how's it going? Tell me what's up in London, because I'm really, really excited to get back. So where are we? What's up? Yes, sir. Let's hear what are some of the hardest women to flirt with. Depends who you are and where you are, man. Probably the hardest women to flirt with. That's a good question. Sometimes I find, well, I don't know, I would say something like Russian women, because they can seem so cold if they're not interested in you, and they sort of test you so hard at the start of a conversation to see if you're going to flounder or if you're going to get nervous. But if you are confidently teasing them, a lot of the time, even if they don't understand you, they're still giggling away. So there's something, I wouldn't say that any is particularly hard to. Here in Rio, it can be quite hard to flirt sometimes, because they're so used to clear and bold expressions of sexuality that sometimes the more subtle approach, they don't really understand sarcasm when it's not related to sex. It's like sexual sarcasm is really common here, but general sarcasm is not. And so there's sometimes some sort of culture clash where you say something sarcastically and they're like, really? You're like, no, I'm joking. They're like, oh, why would you joke about that? Like, I've had that a few times. But women are really friendly over here. So I don't know where's the hardest place. Maybe the English girls living in London who get too much attention, or who get a lot of attention and aren't actually that beautiful, because oftentimes they start to relish this idea that they weren't considered pretty in school, and now they've got all these guys chasing them, and they just want to like use that and leverage that power and squeeze the juice out of being in that position. And so when you get English girls who are moderately attractive, and thus there's like 20 guys hitting on them per day, because the really beautiful girls don't get hit on nearly as much. So when you've got the moderately attractive girls who seem like easy targets for approaching, they can often be the hardest to flirt with, because they're so closed off to giving anyone a chance, because they're just enjoying leveraging this power that they seem to have. So that maybe English girls in London are the hardest. Could be. Hey Flavio, how are you doing, man? How are you finding Brazil at the moment, man? Is your situation improving? Are you meeting some girls out here? Any countries' cultures particularly dry? Yeah, and I mean Northern Europe is, right? On the whole, Northern and Western Europe on the whole is more dry and closed, right? England is more or less cold. Switzerland is cold in terms of personality-wise. Scandinavia is generally cold. However, Finland is an exception, and Swedish women seem to be very receptive to cold approach as well. Though that receptiveness doesn't necessarily correlate with interest. Sometimes they're receptive out of politeness, but actually not interested. And then you have cultures where people are extremely receptive, but it never really goes anywhere. That was my experience, sort of Serbia, Budvar. They were looking for a slower build-up. They were looking for more, establishing more connection, knowing more about you, getting essentially you to commit to marrying them before anything happens. Because why would they want to waste their purity and their time with someone that doesn't want to give them security, a home, love, affection, care? Not necessarily the worst idea in the world. Depends what type of person you are, depends what you're looking for, depends on your culture. To follow up on that, what is your course of action when you're putting out flirting vibes and she's just being a bit of a wall? There's a number of ways to do it, man. Like, if I get the impression she's really not interested in me, I will just usually call that out. You can be like, it's abundantly clear to me that you are not and never will be attracted to me. So I'm going to bid you goodwill and have a nice day. Right? If she's not interested in me, I don't care. Why would I want to try with someone that's not interested in me? When I know that there's plenty of people that are interested in me, it just doesn't matter, right? You have to drop your ego with this stuff. You have to drop this idea that you're good or bad with women. You can get better or worse, or that any of this makes any sense. I like to use this quote. Quote me on this one. I haven't taken this one anymore. It's not very good. I've put too much pressure on it now. Some women like some men some of the time. Some women like some men some of the time. And that for me is the way that I ground myself in this idea that there is no good or bad or right or wrong. You are telling yourself a story about how you are. She is creating a story about how you are. Your stories inevitably and innately cannot be the same story, because your impression of yourself is inevitably different to someone else's. There is no way that you can see the exact same version. And your story about yourself even changes day to day, hour to hour, based on the fluctuation of your hormones and your emotions. And her story about you will change based on her hormones and her emotions and the light in which she sees you, and whether there's a ketchup stain on your shirt today, and whether you spoke first and coughed or didn't cough. There's so much fluctuation and so little stability in our identity, the way we perceive our identity and the way women perceive our identity, that it means nothing to think of yourself as good or bad. If you have a good moment, recognize it as a good moment. If you find yourself in flow state, don't be fooled by thinking that you're suddenly in this zone that will never end and that it's just easy for you now and women just like you now. No, it's not the case. You are not a fixed identity. You're not a fixed entity. Stop worrying about getting better, being more attractive. Focus on what you want to see in your life. Focus on what kind of women you want to date. Where do you want to meet them? How are you going to go and talk to them? And then go and talk to them and learn from your mistakes. Consistent action and an ability to learn from your mistakes. Consistent action, active learning. Consistent action, active learning. Drop your identity, drop your ego, drop any obsession with getting better. Better relative to who? To moving target. As soon as you get better, there's someone else that's far ahead of you. There's someone else that you're not going to be as good at. And just as you get this sort of momentary sense of sort of egoistic high when you feel like the man, you feel cool and you feel like women like you, just around the corner you're going to feel like shit. You're going to go out and your palms are going to be sweating and it's going to crush you because you got too overexcited about being better. I would take all of the focus off getting better and focus on other people. There's many reports to show that life satisfaction has a high correlation between people who spend the majority of their time thinking about others and not focused on themselves. People in humanitarian fields who do aid and offer help and work closely person to person in charities, right, delivering mosquito nets. The reported levels of happiness and life satisfaction are much higher in people who focus on others and not on themselves. If I start thinking about myself as the coach, as like, oh, you know, I'm good because I'm a coach. I'm good with women, right? And that's who I am, and that's why I can help other people get as good as me. I'm about to have a psychological crisis if I start thinking like that. It's not the way to think about it. My focus is to help you guys to get where you want to be, to have the lives that you want to have, and take all of the focus off me. I just need to keep taking my consistent action, both with putting out content for you guys and helping you guys, and both going out myself and talking to girls. When I'm not doing that, I don't need to judge myself. I don't need to change my identity or think about my identity. I just need to take the action that's required of me. And that's exactly the same for you. Ooh, we've got lots of responses now. First time watching a live. Welcome the coffee club. I hope your coffee is better than mine here in Brazil. Brazil exports all of their best coffee and keeps all the crap. So you would think Brazilian coffee is good. It's not. Will you be in Asia with Tusky Boy later this year? I don't know, man. I'm planning like 3 months ahead at the moment. Any more than that is just way outside of my psychological capacity. I find the Netherlands hard to gain. I haven't really done much approaching. I've been to Amsterdam a few times, done a couple of approaches in Amsterdam and Rotterdam, but I found not really my type over there. English girls, I've had a right experience with English girls, but it was always while coming across them while traveling Asia, so maybe they're already open for a new experience. Yeah, that's true. English girls abroad are much freer than English girls in England. The thing about London, the interesting thing about somewhere like London, is that just as here in Brazil, an English person has an advantage because they're exotic, in London, an English person has an advantage because they're exotic. Because London mainly consists of Europeans, of Italian, Spanish, Portuguese, Arabic, Turkish. Like it's not many English people in central London. So you almost have the same gringo effect that you have in Brazil of having sort of status for being, from a certain place. You basically have that in London as well, if you're an English person, or at least culturally an English person, because you're still exotic, and most people are tourists, and most people that are tourists want to meet and introduce themselves to English culture, and therefore being part of English culture, having that appearance, is exciting to the majority. So English girls know that as well. English girls know that they are a valuable asset in London when it's mostly consists of tourists. An English girl who's relatively attractive is going to get a lot more serious attention than a foreign girl of equal attractiveness. I've started out, done a few intense boot camps, but have occasional doubts that I will ever be comfortable with it. I know I'm charismatic and feel like eventually I will power through a painful period and it'll be more fun and I'll be more comfortable. Did you have a period where you had doubts, found it difficult, and then finally had an epiphany and got into the swing of things and it became normal? Good question. Good question. I just want to address, basically it's all captured in the second sentence. I've started out, done a few intense boot camps, but have occasional doubts that I will ever be comfortable with it. You'll never be fully comfortable with it, nor do you want to. The whole reward system in your mind, the dopamine that's released when this goes well, the good feeling, all of the positive experience that you get from engaging in the action of cold approach or meeting new people, actively meeting new people, is about pushing your comfort zone. So if you ever became comfortable with it, you would lose your desire to do it, and you do not want to ever become fully comfortable with it. That's not to say that you're not going to have amazing periods where you're, consistent, and you can even extend those. You can just keep your consistency if you have the time, the resources, the willpower to just keep approaching every day or every other day and keep hitting those targets. Then you're generally going to start to feel comfortable with it in a more long-term sense. But almost inevitably, you're going to have highs and lows, right? It's inevitable. If you have a really good period, you're going to have a bad period afterwards. And that's what I was saying before about dropping all attachment to identity and thinking that you finally had this epiphany that's changed everything. You have that epiphany, It seems like it's addressed everything. Understand that it hasn't addressed everything. It's just what you needed to feel right now. It was the emotion, it was the moment that you needed some sort of boost, you needed some sort of kick, and it's come to you at the right time. Appreciate it, enjoy it, be grateful for it. Do not hang on to it. Do not reach for it to stay. Allow it to pass as and when it's ready. And instead of getting caught in the highs and the lows and thinking you're some fucking amazing person and then dropping and feeling like nothing, feeling like dirt, feeling, embarrassing, awkward, nervous, shy, introverted, instead of getting caught up in these changing states, you just ride the middle of the wave, right? You just ride along the middle. You monitor your highs, you monitor your lows, you enjoy them while they last, you accept them, you let them pass, you let them change, you lose your attachment to that they are your identity, and you accept that you're just moving in and out of different states, and then you can maintain consistency. You're using your energy up by getting wrapped up in stories about yourself, whether they're good stories or bad stories that are draining your energy, and they're the opposite of consistency. Consistency comes from dropping the identity, approaching women because you want to, as you want to, and not thinking about yourself necessarily as getting better. Because what will happen when you start to bring the people into your life that you're focused on bringing into your life is that when they come into your life, which they will if you're focused on it and you go after those goals, having those people in your life requires that you are the type of man that is worthy of them in your life. And so you will change as you do not focus so much on change. A watched clock never ticks. A watched pot never boils. Try to focus on other people, bringing into your life the things that you want. Lose your narratives about identity and about being the best and trying to change. And as you focus on the work that needs to be done, you will realize that you are becoming the person that's worthy of those results. I hope that answers that question. For me, it's been German girls, but maybe I've just met some monotone Germans. Yeah, no, Germans can be really direct and monotone, but I really like German women, and I have good experiences with them. Did you have a period where you had doubts, found it difficult, and then finally had an epiphany? Yeah, I did. But I had that loads of times, man. I had loads of periods where I had doubts. I have periods where I have doubts. I have periods where I find it difficult. And I regularly have epiphanies, right? And a lot of time, epiphanies are what fuels a period of high output, of extremely high content output, or really amazing results, a new way of thinking. But I've had it so many times that I know that it's not the final solution. I know that just as I can have an epiphany one day, 2 steps forward, 1 step back, 2 steps forward, 1 step back. At some point, I'm going to lose that sense of passion and inspiration and motivation that epiphany inspired in me. And so for the moment, I'm just going to run with it. I'm going to enjoy it. I'm going to let it boost me into this period of high output and of success. And then I'm going to accept that it won't last forever. And inevitably, I'm going to feel low at some point again in the future. And when that time comes, just as I've accepted that this will pass, I accept too that the low will pass, and I don't get caught up in the highs and lows. I ride the medium in between them. And that, for me, is the key to consistency, but not just consistency, it's the key to charisma. Because I think charismatic people are people that are just focused on others. They're not arrogant. Charisma is inversely correlated to arrogance, and overly thinking about yourself, too much focus on yourself, turns into arrogance. It turns into this sense that you're the center of everything, and it's embarrassing. It's embarrassing for everyone involved. Arrogance is just such an unlikable quality in human beings, and it all stems out of self-focus. So instead, in group situations, focus on the other person. Imagine that you don't have an identity. Be humble, right? Listen to people who have less experience than you, and then demonstrate what you can do to them, and then watch them say, God, I was giving this guy advice, I had no idea he was this good, right? Watch it humble other people as well. Watch your humility spread and become contagious. Approaching in general, sorry. Yes. Yeah. Hey, Ian. Good, man. It's going good. How are you doing? Yeah, it's difficult to approaching pandemic. Luckily, pandemic finish June 21st. Have issues with my middle manager who's a woman without being competent or skilled. I can't respect her like other men. She is aware of this and makes my life hard. Okay, man. Book a call with me and we'll talk about that. You get tons of Brazilians over here in London. Why chase it in another country when you can get it here? That's what I love about gaming in London most, is the variety that you get from all over. Yeah, I like that about London as well. But Brazil, Rio, is full of beautiful, young, expressive, open-minded women on a beach in bikinis. So why would you chase, the 2% of Londoners that are Brazilian when you have a huge population of young, beautiful, open-minded Brazilian women here who aren't becoming, in some sense, soured or Britannicized, let's say, Britannicized by the culture of England, which is that women have all of the power and men have to hopelessly chase women for women to be a harsh selector of who they decide to even be polite to. Why would you want to limit yourself to just that when over here you have certain advantages that don't exist in London, right? And I'm not saying either one is better. I'm not saying all women are like that in London either, of course not. But I prefer the variety. I like to look at places with fresh eyes. I like to get excited about returning to London and then excited again to return here. Ian, man, the coffee is terrible here. It's so bad. It's so bad. They give the UK all of the good stuff and they save the worst stuff for themselves. How are you handling physical contact while flirting during COVID? Obviously person to person, but it seems to be so easy to overstep right now and I get bummed when I make someone uncomfortable. Yeah, you should be cautious and careful about this. Physical contact, like everything else in this, is about step by step. So if you're talking to a girl, you take a little step forward and she takes a step back, you've reached your limit of where she's comfortable with personal space. So at that stage, you wouldn't touch her, right? You take a step forward, she stays where she is, she's comfortable with you there, right? You put your hand gently on her back as you look in another direction, you touch her back, she pulls away, you've overstepped it, so you take a step back. She accepts your hand on her back, she doesn't mind, she's comfortable with it, and you can continue. It's never just like, do this one final action and and accept all the consequences. She might call the police or she might sleep with you. It doesn't have to be like that, man. It's a slow build up. So you just take whatever the next little step is forward in the direction that you want to go, and then you assess and analyze. And most of this will happen subconsciously. You'll sense whether she's comfortable without needing to overtly and consciously consider it, unless you are somewhere on the autism spectrum, in which case you have to pay more attention to facial cues and the intuition will play less of an important role because it's much more difficult. Right. How do you feel if you have a girlfriend that travels on a gap year? And so on, what are the chances of them cheating on you? Should you just find another girl? No, man, you shouldn't just find another guy if you really like the girl you're with. But I would consider what's more important to you, right? Is this relationship so important to you that you can spend a year away from someone in celibacy, not seeing them? Or do you have the maturity to let each other go for this year? And if the relationship really is that important, you'll keep talking to them, you'll keep learning about their life, and you won't put so much of an emphasis on sexual exclusivity for you or for her, right? Like, how do you want to play this? Why do you want to be sexually exclusive with this girl while she travels for a year? Is it out of fear and sexual jealousy, or is it because you want to marry her and you want to spend your life with her, have children with her? Like, what is the seriousness of this situation, right? And what is the right decision to make based on how much you value the relationship in its current form? Hey, man, good to see you. Thanks, T-Dot. Appreciate the message, brother. All good. Do you think these things are effective when you're sparing it seems there's definitely some utility, but it's easy to overcook. What do you think anyway? I think we've got to be careful about separating arrogance from confidence, because confidence is always an attractive trait, because it's the belief that you can have what you want in life. That's confidence. Arrogance is the belief that you are better than you are, or you're performing to an extent that you're not. So arrogance is delusion. It's psychopathy. It's acting like you are something that you are not. And it's deeply unattractive to women, but even more so to other men. And if you're ostracized by men, you can be fairly certain that women are going to get the message. Essentially, if all other men think you're a complete weirdo and don't want you around because you're deluded about who you are, you're disrespectful to them, and you act like you're better than them, then they're not going to want to have you around. And if they don't want to, what do you think women are going to see? This guy's been abandoned by his tribe. I don't want to be with the guy that's abandoned by his own tribe. What kind of survival value is that? What kind of partner is that doesn't even have a tribe to protect him, right? It makes sense even in today's world, let alone the evolutionary tribal world in which these traits evolved. Even today, if there were no respect to evolution, it would be a hideous trait to have as far as fitness is concerned, so survival fitness. So bad boy traits, for example, honesty, clear communication, confidence, an ability to deal with conflict, risk-taking, all of these are bad boy traits, right? Or depending on how you define bad boy. And all of these are awesome traits to have, right? You want to be confident. You want to be clear in your communication. You want to have an ability to deal with conflict when it arises. Arrogance, I don't believe is. I believe any man that is high in arrogance and not just confidence is going to attract into his life wounded women that base their own validation on being accepted by this guy. Like attracts like in most cases. So if you're looking for broken, wounded women to live out this strange fantasy with, then they're going to be attracted to broken and wounded men. And most of the time, arrogance is a very clear display of internal brokenness and of deep-seated insecurity that expresses itself as overconfidence relative to your actual ability. I don't have enough time to keep in touch with all of them. How to manage possible drama. I don't like ghosting girls or getting ghosted. This doesn't really sound like a problem, brother. Recently dated lots of girls, but I don't have enough time to keep in touch with all of them. Poor you, poor thing. John Jones. Everyone say, John Jones hasn't got enough time for all his girls. No, I'm playing that. How to manage the possible drama. There is no drama, right? You don't have to respond to anyone's messages. You have no responsibility to. Just focus on the girls you like and tell the others that you're seeing someone, right? This is not a problem by the sounds of it. Just, I put all of the girls that I am dating or potentially will be dating in a broadcast list, and I message the ones that I want to talk to, or maybe I message all of them and see what's up, and then I sift through and focus on the girls I really like and ignore the others. My advice on regaining motivation is that you cannot regain motivation before you start approaching, right? If you start approaching, you'll get motivation. Passion stems from action. It's not the other way around. You cannot rely on your mind to change so that you can start approaching. You must go out and talk to women, and I guarantee that when you do, you will have motivation to do it, because you have to first take the action, and it's the same with everything. Yeah, cool. The closet. I think it's like Art Deco. I think it's Art Deco, or some sort of modern take. I think it's only from the 1970s though, so it's not real Art Deco. It's just some semi-classy faux Art Deco that was popular in Rio at the time. Sounds like those positive things all stem from true, deep-rooted confidence. Good distinction. Thanks, man. And on that note, please get in touch with me at my Calendly link. I'm going to be back in London on June the 21st. I will be coaching the first 4 weekends. I think I've got only one Friday free, so So again, get into contact on Calendly to see if I've got any time in the first couple of weeks, but I'll try and make time for all of you because a lot of you guys are messaging me about London at the moment. But even if you're not in London or you don't want to do the coaching, get in contact at the Calendly link that I've put in the comments here and that's underneath the video as well. We'll have a free call. I'll help you with anything you need to know about. And yeah, I'll see you in the next video. Rubik's Cube. Sam out.